What's up, music fans of the internet? I'm Derek.
And I'm Kevin.
And together we're last week's album where we're bringing you the only reviews with two different views. And this week we're talking about Masterpiece by Big Thief. And we're asking the big question, will Big Thief's folk rock masterpiece steal your attention? Cheers, Kevin, everyone at home.
Cheers, Derek, and everyone at home.
So Big Thief is a Brooklyn-based quartet. They're led by frontwoman Adrianne Lenker. They are signed to Saddle Creek, and Masterpiece is their debut album. Audacious album title, if you will. But I guess we're here to talk about whether or not they live up to it or not. But let's start by talking about what it sounds like. Kevin, what'd you think?
I thought that Masterpiece sounds like Sharon Van Etten, Angel Olsen, and Band of Horses robbed the Folk Rock Museum of Timeless Treasures. Timeless Treasures is part of the Folk Rock Museum's name, by the way. They're not robbing it of Timeless Treasures. This is a Folk Rock Museum I made up. Doesn't exist.
I think Big Thief sounds like Courtney Barnett having a coffee with those Darlins and of Monsters and Men at a really small table. It's really crowded. All right, so let's talk about some highlights. Kevin, what'd you think?
First up on my list of highlights are Adrianne Lenker's vocals. I thought they were one of the strongest points of this album. They're sort of dusty and lilting, along with a little country twang that just mixed together makes her, really, really enjoyable to listen to.
Her delivery is very emotive, and it really lends itself to telling stories, if you will. And so I think she just really does a great job delivering a lot of emotional punch to equally emotive lyrics.
I am so glad you used the word stories, because that's my next highlight. The lyrics here tell amazing stories. They're both introspective and observant. They tell specific stories, but with this sort of universal relatability. And I think Real Love and Paul are great example of those. Paul might be one of the best written songs of this year already, in my opinion.
I have a hard time saying anything against that. For the same point, one of my highlights also the intriguing songwriting, especially in Paul. For the vivid imagery, I really liked it, but I think it also relates to your relatability point. She says, "I'll be your real tough cookie with your whiskey breath. I'll be a killer and a thriller and the cause of our death." A lot in two very quick lines there. It was very vivid, but then incredibly relatable.
Yeah, very vivid, but also very efficient. Usually you get one or the other in a songwriter, and the way that she can use very specific words to paint a picture, but very quickly, and then she's on to the next point or the next line or the next part of the story. Really, really great songwriting.
One I really kind of liked that you mentioned was Real Love. Lyrically, I thought it was fantastic, touching on subjects of domestic violence. And sonically, though, it really matched the lyrical intensity here. The verses were really kind of soft and subdued, and then really snowballed into booming walls of sound for the choruses. And then even at the end, the guitar solo just dropping on you right after the lyrics hit this emotional peak, I thought just added to the lyrical theme's poignancy.
I think that song in particular probably encapsulates their sound the best, from sort of soft to loud, because they can play the full spectrum, I think, of folk to rock. You get songs like Masterpiece and Vegas and Humids, which show they can sort of crank it up and rock a little bit. And then you get songs like Lorraine and Paul and Randy. I don't know why all those happen to be first names, but those, they strip things down and sort of keep you listening in a totally different way. So I think they do a good job of leaning on their different skills. And to your point, in Real Love, they bring it all together in one track. The only other one I was going to touch on was just the guitar work here. I thought is phenomenal. It really knows its place in each song, when to sort of take the lead and when to sit back, when to play off what's happening in the song. I also like the sort of out of tune solo in Masterpiece, which, if you think about the song as a metaphor and, about being perfectly imperfect, that solo and it being out of tune is just perfectly imperfect, especially for that song.
Let's talk about some lowlights. What'd you think?
Sure. I only have one big bone to pick here on this record, and that's these sort of demo home recording effects that we get in different parts of the album. Actually, you get it in the entire opener, Little Arrow. And then at the end of Interstate, you get this sort of home recording talking of a small child. Maybe it was Adrianne as a young girl. And then Velvet Ring sort of has this tape hiss at the end of it. I get it. I think it works with the theme of, again, perfectly imperfect things. But it felt like it was trying too hard. And I thought that theme was much better executed when that was actually part of the song, not something at the beginning or the end, or recorded in an entire sort of demo way. For example, when I thought it did work well was on the out of tune solo of Masterpiece, or the feedback we get on Humans. Those were great parts where there's some intentional rough edges here put in, but it didn't distract from the larger picture. And I thought a few times, like the ones I mentioned, it just got a little too distracting for me and like hitting me over the head with the theme. I get it, you know?
I really agree with you. To some extent, the opening track, some part of me almost kind of dismissed it and really kind of saw Masterpiece, the track title, second track, really being the real introduction to the band, if you will. All right, so let's talk about the overall rating and asking the big question, will Big Thief's folk rock masterpiece steal your attention? Kevin, why don't you start us off?
Sure. Will it steal your attention? I think definitely. I think this is one of those bands that really grabs your attention on the first listen. It's one of those bands when you're out and about, if you're at a bar or a party, you stop and you're like, what is this and who is this band? I gotta know more. That's the way this band sort of appeals to me, at least personally. I think they've got a great mix of old and new that keeps it really timeless in a good way. I really like the way the vocals hover just above the mix. So they're at times sort of intelligible, but if you listen closely, you can get it. And I think this is one of those bands, definitely the songwriting commands your attention and you should listen closely. And I think it's an incredibly solid debut album. You can hear how much progress they've already made and how much potential they still have. So that being said, I'm giving this one a 4 out of 5.
Kevin, I think we're going to agree quite a bit to answer the big question. I think absolutely they're going to steal your attention. I think not only hearing them, asking who are they, I think the songwriting is so good, they will capture you and have people saying, oh, wow, what'd she just say? I think just the songwriting here is fantastic. The way the lyrics interact, strong emotions mirrored by the music is really great. Totally agree with you. I'm looking forward to seeing more from them. But for now, Masterpiece is incredibly engaging. And so that's why I'm giving this one a 4 out of 5 as well. And so with Kevin's, that's a combined 8 out of 10. Go check out Masterpiece by Big Thief. Thanks again for joining us here at last week's album. We're bringing you the only reviews with 2 different views. Don't forget to subscribe to the YouTube or to the podcast. And join us again next time. As always, I'm Derek.
And I'm Kevin.
Cheers, guys.